Hi, welcome to the Rewind the Timeline podcast brought to you by thetimelinemachine.com. I am your host, the Timeline King. This is the podcast where we go back in time to talk about all the pop culture anniversaries that have happened this past week. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the 10 year, 25 year, 35 year, 50 year, and onwards of all the major hits in pop culture. This is episode 18, and for this episode, we will be looking at all the anniversaries that have happened from July 30th all the way until August 5th. Let us begin. First is July 30th. This is 75 years ago, July 30th, 1948. We have the birth of actor Jean Reno, who was born in Casablanca, French Morocco. Jean Reno's birth name is Juan Moreno y Herrera Jimenez, so he is of Spanish heritage. But he lived in France for most of his life, so he's considered a French actor. The guy was popular in France, and that talent transferred to him, soon starring in American movies. He has done a bunch of action movies. I put down his most famous movies, which are Leon the Professional, the first Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise, Godzilla with Matthew Broderick. That was the movie that first introduced me to him. And the Da Vinci Code, he was in that too, opposite Tom Hanks, and the Pink Panther with Steve Martin. What I found really interesting was that Reno also voiced Mufasa in the French dub of The Lion King. It never really occurred to me, but he does have a good voice for that. Apparently, this dude was also offered the role of Agent Smith in the Matrix movies, a role that would obviously later be given to Hugo Weaving. So all around, this dude is a notable actor, and if you were watching any action movies in the 90s, you probably saw one of his performances. So happy 75th birthday to Jean Reno. Next is 10 years ago, July 30th, 2013, we have the release of the movie The Lifeguard. Originally, The Lifeguard was released on video on demand, but it was successful enough there that, like, a few weeks later, the movie was given a limited theatrical release. I did see this movie, and I really liked it. So, the movie stars Kristen Bell, right, who is a 29-year-old who is unhappy with her journalism job in the big city. So, she decides to move back to her small town and for a while until she can figure her life out. Something that, like, I'm sure every 20-year-old probably goes, right? However, as she is in her old environment that she was previously in when she was a teenager, she slowly starts reverting back to like those teenage ways. She gets the same job that she had as a teenager, which is being a lifeguard. Then she starts hanging out with her old friends again, and they start doing the same things that they did when they were teens, like smoking weed and drinking. The biggest crazy thing of all is that she starts getting into a relationship with a teenager. And she completely forgets that she's a 29-year-old adult now. And then, she starts dating this like 16, 17-year-old. Um, and yeah. And so I think this movie like does a really good job of showing just how confusing life in your 20s can be. Like, and I definitely felt that way as well. Though we are legally adults, like when you're in your 20s, we still haven't like fully figured our lives out. And sometimes we just want to like crawl back into the shelter of like what is familiar and enjoy life the way we did when we were teenagers. Not taking it for granted the way we actually did when we were teenagers. Um, and this movie show also shows that no matter how much you try to be a teenager again, you are pretty much still a grown adult, and you will have to face the adult consequences of your actions. So I'd recommend checking out this movie for anybody who wants to see it. It's available for free to watch on Tubi. I personally consider it like one of Kristen Bell's best movies. Happy 10th anniversary to The Lifeguard. Next, we move to July 31st. First is 25 years ago, July 31st, 1998. We have the release of two films, BASEketball and Ever After, A Cinderella Story. I haven't seen either of these movies, so I can't comment on them. Baseball isn't available on any streaming services, though it has gotten bad reviews, so I don't think I would even want to watch it, even if it was like freely available. The film is directed by David Zucker, who did the Naked Gun movies, and it also stars like Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the dudes who created South Park. So I think that kind of tells you about the quality, probably somewhere in between, in between that. And apparently, this movie was like the origin of the word derp. I don't know anybody who uses that word. Maybe they used it when the movie came out. I don't know. Anyway, then there's Ever After, which is like another Cinderella adaptation. So this one is available on Disney Plus for anyone who wants to check it out. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment if this is like any different from any other Cinderella adaptations. It has Drew Barrymore in it though, so I guess that is the only thing it has going for it. Yeah, anyway, happy 25 years to BASEketball and Ever After. All right, now we move to 10 years ago, July 31st, 2013. We have the release of The Smurfs 2. Yet another movie that I have not seen. Some of you might be wondering why I'm even doing this podcast if I haven't watched these movies. And my answer to you is shut up. Okay, I enjoyed The Smurfs as a kid, but I won't waste my time watching films that everyone says are terrible, especially ones that I would have to pay to watch. Besides, even the CGI on this poster is like atrocious. I can only imagine how hideous the Smurfs look in the actual movie. One thing notable about this movie is that it is the final film of Jonathan Winters, who passed away earlier that year, on April 11th, 2013. So he voiced Papa Smurf all the way back from the original cartoon, and this movie was like dedicated in his memory. So maybe for that, happy 10 years to the Smurfs too. All right, now let's go to August 1st. This is 35 years ago, August 1st, 1988. We have the launch of the CBN Family Channel. So this channel has an interesting history. It originally started as the Christian Broadcasting Network, then it shortened its name to the CBN Cable Network, and on this day, August 1st, 1988, it rebranded itself as the CBN Family Channel. So I assume the intent was to downplay the references to Christianity and to kind of like appeal to a wider audience by having the word family in it. So though it was still owned by CBN at the time of the title change, so eventually this would just become the Family Channel, and then it would get sold to like Fox to become Fox Family, and then Disney to become ABC Family. The word family was still included, like even 28 years later, like after this moment, all the way up until 2016 when the channel became Freeform. So from Christian broadcasting all the way to Freeform, this channel has a crazy history. Happy 35 years to the CBN Family Channel. Let's move to August 2nd. We have a bunch of things happening that day. First is 50 years ago, August 2nd, 1973, we have the birth of Simon Kinberg in London, England. Simon Kinberg is a famous screenwriter, producer, and director. His biggest contribution as a screenwriter was to the X-Men film franchise. He worked on the films X-Men The Last Stand, X-Men Days of Future Past, X-Men Apocalypse, and Dark Phoenix. The last one, Dark Phoenix, he also directed. That was his directorial debut. And that part I never like really understood. So X-Men The Last Stand was not critically well received, right? And part of the complaint was the way that the writers messed up the Dark Phoenix story, which was like a popular thing in the comics. So why would you give the guy who wrote The Last Stand the opportunity to direct Dark Phoenix? It just doesn't make sense to me. Although I guess like maybe I can kind of understand it, so Kinberg might be an iffy writer, but he has produced some of like the best movies in the past 10 years. He produced X-Men First Class, Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella, which is like one of the best Disney live action remakes. He did Fantastic. Okay, yeah, maybe not that one. And then he also did Deadpool, Logan, Murder on the Orient Express. So this guy definitely has talent, and it's understandable why the studio would want to take a chance on him. So even though Dark Phoenix and X-Men The Last Stand were both bad, we have to commend Kinberg on the work he did accomplish. Happy 50th birthday to screenwriter Simon Kinberg. Next is 35 years ago, August 2nd, 1988. We have the debut of Batman villain Cornelius Stirk, who made his first appearance in Detective Comics number 592 as a creation of writer Alan Grant and artist Norm Breyfogle. So Cornelius Stirk is similar to another Batman villain, Scarecrow. So Stirk's ability is to create like hallucinations through telepathy and to make people vulnerable enough so that he can kill them and like steal the nutrients in their hearts. So yeah, he's a weird villain, but I like him. Happy 35 years to Cornelius Stirk. Also 35 years ago, August 2nd, 1988, we have the debut of the short film Tin Toy, which was screened to audiences for the first time at the SIGGRAPH industry trade show. So Tin Toy isn't the first short film that was created by Pixar, but it is the one responsible for putting the company where it is now. Prior to this, like Pixar was struggling. The CGI technology was costing more money than they were actually making from it. But the response to this short, Tin Toy, like really turned things around, and everybody suddenly now saw the potential that computer technology had or could have in like creating animated movies. So Disney especially like really liked this short film, and they wanted like a feature length version of like Tin Toy, and that eventually like put Pixar on the road to like creating and releasing Toy Story in 1995, and then and from there on, like Pixar has been on the map ever since. I first saw Tin Toy when it was released along with Toy Story on VHS. And watching this film, it's really a time capsule to like how far CGI animation has come. Tin Toy was still at a time when all the CGI just like had that plastic look to it, but nowadays like CGI animation has just become a lot more smoother and a lot more like realistic, in the way that like the animation flows. And I mean, even aside from Pixar, there have been other companies that have like invested in CGI, and that has gotten us results like Spider-Verse, which is like such a big accomplishment moving it forward. And definitely we can say all that began with like Tin Toy on this day 35 years ago. So happy 35th anniversary to Tin Toy. And then now we move to 25 years ago, August 2nd, 1998. We have a few more Oh Yeah cartoons that are celebrating their 25th anniversary this week. First is Jamal the Funny Frog. So this was created by Pat Ventura, who's the same guy who brought us the What a Cartoon shorts, Yucky Duck, and Sledgehammer Opossum. Pat Ventura definitely does have a style. While I didn't enjoy his style in Yucky Duck and Sledgehammer Opossum, I really did like what he brought to Jamal the Funny Frog. So these cartoons are like a throwback to like the Terry Toon shorts of the 30s and 40s. So it's like everything in the world of Jamal the Frog has like a face and like an energy to it. And the music is just so lively and the characters like all lovable. I'll admit that the stories aren't that great, but I did enjoy like watching all of these shorts. There ended up being like six of these like Jamal shorts, and I thought Ventura's style just like got better like the more they kept on going. And it's something I really recommend checking it out. And then next we have Thatta-Boy. So this was done by the same guy who gave us 25 Cent Trouble, also known as Teddy and Art, which I talked about a couple weeks back on the podcast. So I really hate 25 Cent Trouble. Like, and I said, because of that short, I never want to hear the word catastrophic in my life ever again. However, I do like Thatta-Boy, and I think I think this cartoon is set in the future. So it came out in like 1998, right? And everybody thought that the future would still have like video rental stores would still be around. Little did they know that Netflix would dominate the market pretty soon. And anyway, in this future, like Thatta-Boy is a superhero like who fights like all sorts of crazy villains that like get introduced just in this like 1 6 minute short. And what I like about Alex Curon, who did this short, is like his animation, and it's like it's really smooth and it really flows well. And it's interesting that like this one and 25 Cent Trouble are like nearly the same as far as the characters go. So Teddy and Art is about like a boy and his dog, right? And that a boy is also about like a superhero and his dog. And yet that a boy is just like much more enjoyable, and I like what it sets up in like the world and the characters that it builds up. But too bad we never got like a full TV show out of it or even like a sequel. Then again, there are like so many superheroes these days that I'm sure that boy would have gotten lost in the crowd anyway. And last one is Hobart. So this one only lasted for two shorts, but it was the first of the Oh Yeahs to get a sequel. And it was done by the same guys who did Jelly's Day, and they seem to like specialize in formula. So like every episode of Hobart involves him like accidentally falling into his toilet and getting sucked down into like some weird corner of the world. I'll admit I like the second Hobart short for better than this first one where he meets the weed keeper. So this one just wasn't that funny. The only part I kind of liked was in the beginning where Hobart is getting his girlfriend Oka a new puppy because she walks a toaster for some reason. Yeah, it's definitely that type of weird. But anyway, happy 25th anniversary to the Oh Yeah cartoons shorts, Jamal the Funny Frog, That Boy, and Hobart. Another thing that happened 25 years ago, August 2nd, 1998, we have the beginning of the Second Congo War. Though the wars in Africa don't really get a lot of recognition in the history books, this Second Congo War is really known for like how brutal it was. 5.5 million people died, making it like the deadliest conflict since World War II. And it would last until like July 18th, 2003, like almost 5 full years. Um, and hopefully Africa does not have to see another war like this for a long time. And last thing for August 2nd is 10 years ago, August 2nd, 2013, we had the release of the films Two Guns and The Spectacular Now. Two Guns, what most people wouldn't know about it is that it's actually based on a comic book published by Boom Studios. Yeah, Denzel Washington actually did act in a comic book movie. I haven't read the comic book. I tried watching the movie, and I was thinking like, oh, it has Denzel Washington and Mark Wahlberg in it. It must be good. I tried to get through 20 minutes, and I had to turn it off. This movie is so boring. It's available to watch on Amazon Prime if anybody has the courage to check it out and see the whole thing. Maybe you can tell me that I'm wrong about it. Maybe you're like, oh, the first 20 minutes are bad, but it gets so much better as it goes on. Probably not, but we'll see. And also The Spectacular Now, which is just another movie that I haven't seen, unfortunately. It stars Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley, both actors that I like really like. I've seen it get good reviews, so like I'm guessing that you would like it. It's available to watch on HBO Max. I'm sorry, it's just Max now. We'll watch it there. And happy 10 years to Two Guns and The Spectacular Now. Now let's finally move to August 3rd. This is 100 years ago, August 3rd, 1923. We have the swearing in of President Calvin Coolidge after the death of President Warren G. Harding from a heart attack. Now, there is some debate on when exactly Coolidge became president. Warren Harding died on August 2nd, so some historians consider Coolidge to have been president on August 2nd, right after Harding died. Others say that Coolidge was only acting president on August 2nd, and that and that he was officially president after he was sworn in at 2:49 a.m. on August 3rd. So it's a pedantic thing to argue about, but in case you see a discrepancy between like August 2nd or August 3rd for when Coolidge became president, it is for that reason. Coolidge was considered a popular president, and he oversaw the period of economic growth known as the Roaring Twenties. My personal favorite accomplishment of his was when he granted U.S. citizenship to all Native Americans in 1924, which I actually can't believe wasn't a thing before. Native Americans, even though they were on this land from nearly the beginning, have only legally been U.S. citizens for less than 100 years. It's crazy to think about. And another interesting fact about Coolidge, he is the only U.S. president that was born on Independence Day. Yeah, his birthday is July 4th. Yeah, so happy 100 years to President Calvin Coolidge. And also on August 3rd, this is 50 years ago, August 3rd, 1973, we have the release of the film Black Frankenstein, also known as Blackenstein. There was a movie called Black Eula that was released the year prior, and it proved it to be like a major hit. So obviously there was going to be like other films to like capitalize on the trend of like turning famous fictional characters black. So Little Mermaid wasn't the first one to do that, huh? Anyway, this movie is available for free to watch on Tubi for anyone who wants to check it out. Much like Two Guns, I tried to watch the first 20 minutes and just ended up being bored, so I had to turn it off. There's just none of that charm that like Blackula had for this one, so I can't like recommend it. But anyway, happy 50 years to Blackenstein or Black Frankenstein. And nothing on August 4th, so let's move on to August 5th, where we have another day with a bunch of stuff happening. First is 50 years ago, August 5th, 1973. We have a terror attack at Athens airport. The story here goes that two members of the Black September terrorist group, named Senhud Mohammed and Talat Hussan, they were on a hijacking mission for a flight bound for Tel Aviv. They drew their guns when they were screened by security, and before anybody could react, they hurled their grenades and fired machine guns, killing like 3 people and wounding like 55 in the crowded transit lounge of the Athens airport. So 2 of the dead were Americans, so they were identified as Albert Kurson, age 53 years old, and from Union, New Jersey, and Mrs. Jeannie Salandi, 23, of Highland Park, New Jersey. The third person killed was an Indian national. So the two gunmen held the hostages for like 2 hours before finally surrendering to the police, apparently realizing that their plan wasn't going to happen. It's a sad event in history that happened 50 years ago today. And next is 35 years ago, August 5th, 1988. We have the release of the movie The Blob. I have not seen this movie, so let's just skip it. To the next thing, 25 years ago, August 5th, 1998, we have the release of the film Halloween H2O 20 years later. So I was studying chemistry at the time that this movie was released, and I always so I found out that H2O was like the chemical abbreviation for water, right? So like as a kid, like watching, hearing about this movie, I thought that this movie would be the one where like Mike Myers kills all his victims using water, like like water related methods, like he drowns them, like or he puts a hose in one of them or something like that. As I'm thinking about it, I realized like that would actually be like a far more entertaining movie than the one that we actually got. This movie is actually the first of the Halloween films to create like a fractured timeline. So H2O kind of ignores everything except for Halloween's 1 and 2, and it just picks up like 20 years later after the events of those movies. Now, what I never understood about the Halloween franchise though is like why release a Halloween film in August? Like the holiday is literally in the title. Like release it in October at least. Anyway, happy 25 years to Halloween H2O. Another thing that happened on the same day, 25 years ago, August 5th, 1998, we have the release of the comic book Daredevil number 380. This is the final issue of the original run on Daredevil, which would get rebooted the next month with a new number one. I think at the time, Marvel was like declaring bankruptcy, so rebooting like all their titles was like an easy way just to gain new reader interest. I mean, after all, like more people would be willing to buy a new number one issue than they would be willing to buy a number 381 issue. Still, it was just very sad to like see the numbering end at that time. One thing I do miss about comics is the consecutive numbering. Nowadays, just titles get rebooted and relaunched so often that I don't think we're ever going to get another issue, number 380, happen organically again. I think the most recent one, like Batman, I got to like number 135 or 36 recently, and and it just made me think like, man, we're just never going to see another issue get that far. Batman is like the only comic book at either like Marvel or DC in like the past 10-20 years that has gotten to that high, or at least like one of the most. And I don't see another like issue number 380 happening again. But anyway, happy 25 years to the ending of the original comic book run of Daredevil. And last thing on August 5th, also 25 years ago, August 5th, 1998, we have the premiere of the American version of Whose Line Is It Anyway? One of my favorite shows to watch in the 90s was the Drew Carey Show. And then I found out that like Drew Carey was also hosting like a variety show. And I knew that like I had to check it out, especially since it also stars Ryan Stiles, another cast member from the Drew Carey Show. I checked out a few episodes of Whose Line, and I'll admit that the humor wasn't really for me, especially the age that I was at the time. But given that the show lasted for like 20 seasons and 400 episodes, I think it definitely has popularity. But more importantly, it was very cheap to make. When you can have actors that can improv on stage for 30 minutes, that's a lot cheaper than like doing a scripted show that requires like sets and locations. So even though it might not be for me, I will acknowledge happy 25 years to the Whose Line Is It Anyway. And those are all the anniversaries for this week. I got the chance to see a few movies this week, so I'll give my thoughts on those here right now. First is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I was a fan of Ninja Turtles growing up. One of my family friends got me a VHS tape of the original 1987 TV series when I was a kid, and that's like one of the earliest cartoons that I remember watching. So thus I was like really excited for this movie purely because of the nostalgia factor. As far as my thoughts on the movie itself, I admit I liked it. Maybe there were like a few jokes that fell flat and like a few scenes that could have been trimmed, but overall, I thought the movie did its job well of like modernizing the turtles and introducing them to the 21st century audience. I especially like how the turtles actually sound like teenagers in this one. I looked it up afterwards and saw that they actually got actual teenagers to do the voices, which I felt like was amazing. It's something I never noticed in like watching the older cartoons and movies, but I'm glad somebody thought to make like the teenage turtles actually sound like teenagers. And I also like the art style. The film utilizes something similar to Spider-Verse in that stylized limited frames type of CGI animation. But they keep it different enough where it doesn't feel like a complete copy. If Spider-Verse feels like I'm looking at a Marvel comic book come to life, Mutant Mayhem is more like a Mirage comic book come to life. But that's not to say like this movie is entirely perfect. I did have some problems with it, and and it's mostly coming like as a fanboy of TMNT. So without going into spoilers, there's definitely some things that they change from the traditional TMNT mythos. There are certain characters who look different. There are characters whose origins are different. There are characters whose motivations are different, and and there's not really like a story based reason to justify any of those changes. It just feels like the movie tries to be different for the sake of being different. The turtles as well, like who in the original cartoons and comics, they all have like highly specific personalities. Like Leonardo is the leader guy, Michelangelo is the wise guy, Donatello is the brains of the bunch, Raphael is like the first to like fight. It just says like none of that is there here. Like all the turtles just pretty much act the same, and even like with Donatello, like the only indication that Donatello is even smart is just that he wears glasses. And I'm willing to give them like the benefit of the doubt on this one, because I'm hoping that like the sequels might go more into like exploring the turtles, like getting their own personalities and identities. After all, like who really had their personality figured out when you were like 13 or 14, right? So I'm hoping like this will kind of like progress the same way for like the sequels. Maybe movies like 2 and 3 will see the turtles becoming like the characters that we know them. But one biggest change in this movie that I really hate is is how they change the turtles' origins. They show that like the turtles and Splinter, they learned their ninja skills by watching YouTube videos. And when I saw that scene, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like nobody can become an expert master just by watching like YouTube videos. You need actual like face-to-face physical combat and practice to do that. And it's insane. And plus, it just takes away a lot of the depth from the original origin, where Splinter was himself like a trained assassin who got mutated into a rat, or like the other kind of origin where Splinter was the pet rat of a trained assassin who saw all of his moves and copied them. And yeah, just like them learning how to fight with YouTube videos, it was just something I didn't buy. But anyway, like all of these are just like minor criticisms for me. Like overall, I wouldn't say that they took away from my enjoyment of the movie. I still like the movie, and I'm still intrigued to see like where they can continue the story in this continuity. However, I will say that if you're a hardcore Turtles fan and you're expecting a more faithful adaptation, this probably isn't the movie for you. I would recommend the 1990 movie or like the 2003 cartoon over this one, or even like the 1987 cartoon. It still holds up. Basically just go into the mindset, go into Mutant Mayhem with the mindset of low expectations and open mind, and just try not to think about the Ninja Turtles lore too much. Okay. And the next movie I saw was Haunted Mansion. So they made a Haunted Mansion movie back in 2003, right? So that was like part of the era where Disney was like first making movies based on their theme park rides. And evidently enough time has passed that we are getting a Haunted Mansion remake. I never saw the original Haunted Mansion, mostly because I heard it was bad. And I never did the Haunted Mansion ride at Disney World, mostly because I can't afford it. So I have like nothing to compare this movie to, whether it's like better than the original or if it's like more faithful to the ride or whatever. However, I can say that I did enjoy it. So the main character is played by Lakeith Stanfield, and so he's like a grieving guy who like grieves over his like dead wife, right? And I feel like that's a storyline that can appeal to like most people, right? Like everybody has kind of dealt with loss on some level, right? And so Stanfield's character, like he meets these ghosts who are like looking to take advantage of this grief, so he has to like struggle to like overcome his grief so that he's not put in like a sticky situation. And then so though the movie is rated PG, I think it really fits into that family friendly horror type realm. I don't think there's anything here that kids can't watch. It's a light, fun horror movie that doesn't take this self too seriously. Too seriously. Maybe it's a little too long, but I did enjoy it. I also saw Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One. So this is the seventh Mission Impossible film. So at this point, Tom Cruise has tied with Roger Moore and Sean Connery for acting in the most spy movies. So Cruise will obviously end up overtaking that record when Dead Reckoning Part Two comes out. But for right now, he's tied with James Bond. So I really loved this movie. Like, in Dead Reckoning, all the action was superb, the twists were engaging. So the villain is a presence that feels menacing. So I can't recommend this movie enough for anyone who is an action fan or loves spy movies. So Haley Atwell, she's an actress that I have fallen in love with ever since I saw her in Captain America: The First Avenger, and she really shines in this movie. Like it makes me miss how much we should have gotten a season three of Marvel's Agent Carter. Yeah. Forget a She-Hulk show. Give us Agent Carter, man. I will say that the story of Dead Reckoning is kind of hard to follow at times. It requires knowledge of like the previous movies, and I'm not like a diehard Mission Impossible fan who knows everything about that franchise. And there was some parts that I felt were unnecessary, but I kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt since this is a part one, and they might end up answering those questions in like part two when that comes out. But I mean, I'm really sad that this movie isn't doing like much better at the box office though. It seems to be losing out to like Barbie and Oppenheimer, as well as like the next movie on my list. However, I hope Dead Reckoning is in theaters long enough and people do see like what a great movie it is, and I hope like it makes like a decent profit because I want to see like more of these like Tom Cruise action movies because like he's excellent at like delivering these big stunts to the audience. So yeah, I definitely recommend it out. Check out Dead Reckoning Part One. So the last movie that I saw was Sound of Freedom. This is a movie that I've seen recommended over like the past few weeks by various like people in the online space. So I thought it was like a good time to check it out. However, after watching this movie, I'm like, man, I really wish I didn't see it. And that's not because it's a bad movie. It's just because the subject matter is like way dark. It deals with like child abduction and child abuse, and and it really makes me understand like why my parents were like so protective of me when I was a kid. And after seeing this movie, I will probably never let my hypothetical future children anywhere out of my sight. I looked a bit behind the scenes afterwards and saw that like a lot of this movie is based on a true story. There's obviously some fictionalization here and there though, so mainly in the third act. However, I don't feel that it does anything to warrant like some of the controversy that it's getting. There's some reviews that say that it feels like a QAnon conspiracy that deals with like left wing pedophilia rings, but I just didn't get that watching the movie though. Especially like considering the movie finished production like 5 years ago before QAnon was even a thing, so it doesn't even make sense for me to like consider that. I think this is a good movie on its own, regardless of the controversies. And I like the fact that it addresses an issue that most mainstream Hollywood movies are just like too afraid to tackle. So yeah, I recommend checking out Sound of Freedom. And before we wrap up this episode, I want to address like a couple of the celebrity deaths this week. The first is Paul Rubens, who died on July 30th from cancer. So Rubens is most famous for his role as Pee Wee Herman. Yeah, Pee Wee Herman's a character that I always found annoying as a kid, but it really solidified how great of an actor Paul Rubens was, since he's nothing like Pee Wee Herman in real life. And I should also address like the other thing that Rubens is known for, that indecent exposure scandal that he had in 1991 at an adult movie theater. Yeah, that one like drew a lot of controversy from him, especially because of that family-friendly Pee Wee Herman image that he created. So it really set his career back for years, and he had a lot of trouble finding work afterwards. Um, you know, and so Rubens ultimately did come back. Like I think he did some a Pee Wee Herman movie from Netflix in like 2016. So and then he died at the age of 70. So he did live a good life, and all of his accomplishments are still there with us. So rest in peace, Paul Rubens. And the other death is Sinead O'Connor. So she actually died on July 26th, but I only found out about her death this week. Her cause of that death is still undisclosed, but she was 56 at the time and still relatively young. Sinead O'Connor has had a great career with a lot of great songs to her name. Anybody who grew up in the 90s, like I did, probably listened to her music. As a female singer, she was also very open about like women's rights issues and the own trauma that she faced like growing up. It's really commendable like whenever a celebrity is able to go behind the curtain and like and show like what the price of fame is. And I also found out she converted to Islam in 2018. She goes by the name Shuhada Sadaqut up until her death. So yeah, rest in peace, Sinead O'Connor. And that's everything for this week. So tune in next week for episode 19 and more pop culture anniversaries. Be sure to follow us on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Facebook is the Timeline Machine. Instagram is Waste My Time Machine. So you can keep up to date on all the anniversaries as they happen there. And we also got a lot of great content on our website, thetimelinemachine.com, if you want to check it out. Actually, yes, be sure to check it out. And remember, keep rewinding the timeline. Bye.